everybody. Welcome to Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra, because we are on a Wednesday. Oh my goodness me, the middle of the working week already. Where has that gone? Hey, it only feels like it was 2 days ago we were starting Monday. And anyway, here we are in the library. We've got the fire on. We've also got the soft focus effect on as well, which does slow the stream up a bit. I'm just going to mess around with the soft focus. There we go. That's a bit better. What are we reading? We are still reading the variable Ghost Stations 5, which, yeah, it's... See, the first Ghost Stations book is brilliant. It's straightforward. It's obviously been edited by somebody external, and it gets to the point. The narrative is pure. His following books go off on a tangent, and with his bizarre punctuation that he has, where he has "and" with a comma after it, or he'll punctuate sentences with ... and it's just bizarre. So anyway, so we are on to Ghost Stations 5. What are we drinking tonight? We are on a 2-beer strategy. So we're on the Sotma Strawberry and Lime Premium Cider, 3.4%. I think is this from Lidl or Aldi? Lidl. It says Lidl on the back. Very nice. Very, very nice stuff. And once we're done with that, we will be washing it. We will be, second half of the show, we'll be on to the Blackbird Stout from Home Bargains. And we were also washing it down tonight with the Balmuir from Lidl, which I'm going to get another bottle of that because that's rather jolly good. Right. Here we are. We're now on to UFOs. I think we'll reread this one from last time. UFO over Harold Hill. And Derek Smith also had a close encounter with a UFO. President Ronald Reagan and his wife Nancy both were adamant that they had seen a flying saucer. In one incident in 1990, the Belgian Air Force scrambled 2 jet fighters, F-16s, to intercept a UFO, but when the pilots returned, they were forbidden to talk about it. The Air Force did admit they found nothing, yet they still threw a veil of secrecy over the whole operation. Very strange and sinister. The UFO was reported to be triangular in shape with 3 bright lights, and as this is where you should have a comma now, Bruce, and as the 2 jets approached, it appeared to black itself out and disappeared, should be a comma, yet was still on radar. Then, with incredible acceleration, it was gone. That doesn't make sense. He's got it. It disappeared, yet was still on radar. Then he's put a hyphen in. Then, with incredible acceleration, hyphen, it was gone. So if you read that sentence, and disappeared, yet was still on radar, it was gone. We put a hyphen in there to... Anyway, shall we carry on? It was a similar story from Derek Smith. In the autumn of 1980, I was on night shift patrolling in a police car around the Harold Hill estate about 2:30 a.m. to 3 a.m. I stopped the car and parked in Bridgewater Road near the junction with Hildene Close at the rear of the library. I turned out the car lights and settled into my seat to have a cigarette. I had been parked for about 10 or 15 minutes and was thinking of resuming patrol. I should hope so, mate. When I suddenly saw a brilliant ball of electric blue light appear over the top of my windscreen. It appeared to be the size of a tennis ball and was about 10 or 15 feet in the air. It suddenly accelerated into movement very fast along Bridgewater Road, swerved left behind the library into Hildene Close, and went out of my sight. I started the car and drove after it, but it had vanished. I drove around the area looking and debating with myself about what I had seen and whether to tell anybody, but I decided to keep it to myself. The night was dry and warm, and there were no thunderstorms or rain that night. And as the car was stationary with the engine turned off, there was no way that the light was a streetlight reflection caused by the movement of the car. That definitely deserves a thunderclap. Actually, I'm just going to go on to visual effects. Visual effects. What tint shall we have for tonight's show? Cinematic. Yeah, we're on cinema. We can have it black and white if you want. Don't think I like that one. We can have it cool. Oh, do I like that or not? Cinematic or cool? No, I prefer cinematic. Bright? No, don't like that one. Dark? No, definitely don't like that one. Soft? No. Warm? Warm or cinematic? Actually, we'll go with warm, I think, because it is bloody warm tonight. Anyway, Slash me bar, everybody. Oh, that has been chilling in the fridge. Actually, those cans of beer have been chilling in the fridge for the last few weeks, so they are super, super cool. So very nice. Slash me bar. Ah. UFO over Billinghurst. Alan Waddington is a very down-to-earth and Alan Waddington is very down-to-earth and, comma, the last person that I would expect, comma, to try and invent a flying saucer story. So that doesn't make sense. So Alan Waddington is very down to earth and to try and invent a flying saucer story. And is the last person that I would expect to try and invent a flying saucer story. Come on, Bruce, it's basic punctuation. Oh. Anyway. As a person, I'm interested in aviation and have lived near to municipal and service airfields, he said. I've never come across such intense lights on conventional aircraft at night time, though I took them initially to be landing lights. However, this theory was smashed by the realization that the same patterns of life was seen when the aircraft was flying away from me. Although another aircraft was visible and audible in the vicinity of my position, the other craft made no audible sound either in approach or in passing. It then appeared to hover above the rooftops, my horizon, though at some distance beyond Billinghurst, and we thought that it might be a helicopter, though again, there was none of the sound that identifies a conventional helicopter in approach of flypast. The white lights appeared to be much brighter than the white sodium lighting in the streets. The following night, I heard a light aircraft fly over Billinghurst and observed that it had one white flashing light under the fuselage. The light was not so intense as seen the previous night, which obscured the craft's shape, and the wingtip lights were also visible. The light aircraft flew from east to west and was obvious as an aircraft. I do not feel that we misjudged the one with another. The following is the report that Adam Waddington made out after sighting the UFO. Report of an unidentified flying object. 1. Date, time and duration of sightings. Monday, 1st of October 1979, 1940 hours, approximately 10 minutes. A description including shape, size, color and brightness of the object and whether it made any noise. My attention was drawn to 3 silvery white rotating lights in the night sky, the middle one surmounted by a steady red light approaching over nearby house rooftops. No apparent sound. Your position at the time geographically. Billinghurst, West Sussex, 084257, OS sheet 197. Whether you saw the object with the naked eye, binoculars, etc., and whether you succeeded in photographing it. Initially seen with the naked eye, but by the time I had got my binoculars from the car, it had passed over the house. I observed it for a few moments by the garage, returning to the house. The binoculars did not provide much more detail than I, my wife, and my eldest daughter observed from the house. No photographs. Sketch. The direction in which the UFO was first seen. From the northwest heading eastwards at approximately 135 degrees. Angle of sighting. Initially at approximately 50 degrees, having passed over house approximately 75 degrees. Distance away with landmarks for reference. When seen initially, aircraft was climbing behind object. Gatwick Airport estimate that the aircraft would be approximately 3,000 to 4,000 feet. The aircraft navigation lights were conventional and totally different from UFO, which was lower in sky than aircraft. What movements the object made with speed estimate? Initially, object flew straight course at a slow speed akin to that of an aircraft making a landing approach. Then it appeared to hover over the tops of houses to the rear of ours for some time. Our house is lower on the hillside than those, so that if in conventional flight, it would have disappeared behind them over the crest of the hill. Having maintained station for some 5 minutes, it then moved off in a northeasterly direction, disappearing from view behind trees and other roofs. It would be difficult to estimate speeds without point of reference. The object looked the same from the rear as it did on approach. Night, I didn't do the numbers anyway. Weather conditions. Bright clear sky, stars visible, moon visible. To south, little to no cloud. Nearby objects on ground. Only houses as mentioned. Notified police or other authorities. Duty officer, Gatwick Airport, 2nd of October. That's the end of that one. Good Lord. Oh, I've got some fan mails turn up. Let's just read the fan mail. Do apologise, folks. I've got to answer the fan mail. It's just my friend Judith. Hello, my friend Judith. Right. Let's have another swig of the old cider, Slangery Bar. Oh, lovely. Oh, that is very tasty. Right. UFO and Lightning XS 894. I bet this is the one about the American pilot. It is. At 2200 hours on Tuesday, the 8th of September, 1970, Lightning XS 894 lifted off the runway at Royal Air Force Binbrook and climbed quickly into the night sky over Lincolnshire. The story of the Lightning XS 894 mystery is told in my Ghost Stations Book 2. The full story. Well, as full a story as permitted to say at the time. But now the truth about Lightning XS 894 can be told. In Ghost Stations 2, page 197, I do say that in 1987, 17 years after the incident, I set about trying to solve the eerie mystery, ... Having served in the Royal Air Force Special Security, I could open doors others were not able to do. But even I could not chip away the veil of secrecy that surrounded the Lightning mystery. At the Ministry of Defence, ... doors were closed in my face. Just don't do the dots, Bruce. Come on. At the all-telling United States Air Force Records Office, ... I only had to mention Captain Schaffner and Lightning XS 894 to have the door slammed in my face. Sealed lips. And all of this only added to the mystery, which, comma, made me all the more determined to solve the lightning mystery. Doesn't need a comma there, Bruce. Oh. Many of you will have read the Lightning XS894 mystery in my Ghost Stations book 2. I think we've established that already, Bruce. But for the benefit of those who have not read my books and not familiar with the story, I will go back to the purpose of giving it briefly from the beginning. The single-seater jet fighter took off as stated. At the controls was an American pilot, Captain William Schaffner, who was on his second tour at Royal Air Force Binbrook. He loved to fly the Lightning and was very well familiar with it. I think it should be very familiar with it, anyway, or well familiar with it. Just after 1 hour after getting airborne, Captain Schaffner informed Binbrook that he was in trouble. This was the first clue, and we'll come back to that in a minute. I think I should be we'll come back to that in a minute. He went on to say the Lightning was still flyable, and on that information, Binbrook Control ordered him over the sea to the ditching area, where he was told to meet up with a Shackleton before ditching. As soon as he was over the ditching area, Captain Schaffner was told to eject, the normal procedure, but he did not do so. As the valuable seconds ticked away, the Shackleton circled the area, the crew being at a loss as to why he did not eject. Suddenly, the Lightning went slowly down and settled on the sea like a great metal bird. The Shackleton appeared overhead and illuminated the area. They wanted to give the pilot all the help possible. They were relieved to see the pilot climb out onto the wing and get into the sea. But did the crew see him get out? They thought they did, and at the time they said they saw him climb out onto the wing. The Lightning floated on the sea, then slowly it sank beneath the waves and settled on the seabed in an upright position. Back at Royal Air Force Binbrook, Captain Schaffner's wife was told her husband had to ditch in the sea just off Flamborough Head, but not to worry, for the Shackleton was with him and that the crew had seen him get out before the aircraft went down. The first part of the cover-up had begun. Despite an extensive search by the Air Sea Rescue, Captain Schaffner could not be found. The Ministry of Defence then added, "I don't think he got out of the plane. No wreckage was found." What a stupid statement. The Lightning went down in one piece. It did not break up. Why the sudden change of story after the Avro Shackleton crew said they saw Captain Schaffner get out and into the sea? With a so-called investigation underway, the English Electric Lightning was recovered from the seabed. The divers who went down saw the Lightning sitting on the seabed. It was a very eerie sensation. The canopy was still on, but the pilot was gone. How had he got out with the canopy still in place? It was a chilling, eerie mystery. On examination back at Royal Air Force Binbrook, it was found that Lightning XS894 had only slight nose damage. Otherwise, it was perfect. The cockpit was closed and no pilot inside. No one could answer that. The ejection seat, Bruce, was intact. The mechanism for the ejection seat had fired but not worked, what is called a light strike. It did strike but did not blow the canopy, and the seat was still in place. So very, very strange. So where was Captain Schaffner? And that is where I left it. Now I can tell the true story, and although cannot answer where Captain Schaffner is, I can explain what happened to him that dark September night in 1970. Buckle in, folks. This should be fun. On the night in question, Captain Schaffner was preparing for a routine flight when suddenly the station got a call to intercept an unidentified flying object, UFO. Lightning XS894 was scrambled to intercept the UFO. The Lightning was the perfect machine for such a duty. The Lightning was built for the Royal Air Force as a supersonic Mach 2 interceptor. From cold start to airborne in 90 seconds, very high rate of climb and phenomenal acceleration. Initial rate of climb being over 8 miles, 12 kilometers a minute, reaching 40,000 feet in 2.5 minutes from brakes off. And it could zoom climb to well over 70,000 feet. Thus, the perfect beast to tackle a UFO, and it was a chance Captain Schaffner could not refuse. Those at Royal Air Force Binbrook involved in the mysterious disappearance of Captain Schaffner were afraid to talk, but eventually someone did, but under great fear and only on condition that I did not divulge their name. I gave my word. It is alleged that as the Lightning approached the UFO, an energy beam hit the Lightning and it became under the control of the UFO. Using etheric energy, the energy beam is able to disintegrate matter and convert it back into free energy. This is how Captain Schaffner was removed. Time stopped. The Lightning, helpless and as if guided by remote control from the UFO, it returned to Earth and rested on the seabed, minus Captain Schaffner, whose last radio message was, "The lights on the UFO have now blacked out. Do not feel to be in control." So what was the answer? Captain Schaffner's body was never found, and I am informed that he took off without signing Form 700, which would never be done unless, of course, there was a UFO. Then you would certainly not hang around signing forms. The Lightning returned to Earth, canopy closed, ejection seat in place. The pilot gone. I will do the autopsy of that story in a second. Royal Air Force Binbrook, just after it closed. Number 5 Squadron hangar in 4 on left. It was from 5 Squadron crew room that Schaffner dashed to his Lightning just outside the crew room to the fore of the control tower. A mystery for Schaffner should not have answered the alert, but in typical loudmouth American style, he did and paid the price. Come on, Bruce, you shouldn't be editorializing like that. A 5 Squadron crew room where Captain Schaffner dashed to his Lightning today, silent, only the ghost. There's the pictures. I don't know if you can see them because we've got the blur on. And there we have a 5 Squadron Lightning as flown by Captain Schaffner. The QRA, Quick Reaction Alert shelter that housed 2 Lightning fighters on 24-hour readiness. It was these Lightnings that should have answered the UFO alert, not Schaffner. So why was he allowed to go on his own? 2 aircraft always go. And there we have the pictures. Do you know what? I'm going to see if we can find an photograph of XS894. Sure we can. Lightning XS894. So let's go to I gotta say, he teases something about that and then says that the aircraft was caught in an energy beam. Where's your evidence, Bruce? It just he does my head in, he really does. Let's see if we can find a photograph of Lightning XS894. I think we have. We have found a photograph of Lightning XS894. Here we go. I'm trying to get it to zoom up here. Oh, that's right. Open image in new tab. There we go. Here we go. So it's a Lightning F6. Share screen. A Lightning F6 of number 5 squadron. There we go. So it's got the big belly tank. It's got Fire Streak missiles. Yep, F6 definitely. So, oh, let's share. There we go. Let's share it. There we go. Lightning F6. So that's the one from the story. So the photograph that Bruce shows. Oh, I suppose they would have been camouflaged round about 1970. So I was about to say the photograph shows it camouflaged, but no, I think that would be right. So yeah, natural metal would have been 50s and 60s. So there we go. That's the aircraft in question. That's the Lightning. What are we up to? 28 minutes. I think we'll do a couple more, and then we're pretty much out of book, quite frankly. So, I've just suddenly realised we have emptied the can out. We've got a dead soldier and run VT.
Oh, it's jolly nice of you. Hello, dead soldier. Seen plenty of those in my time.
Oh, I love that film. League of Gentlemen, 1960. Brilliant film. Oh, Slange. UFO and the Swiss holes. At the time of the mysterious disappearance of Captain Schaffner from Lightning XS-894, I keep wanting to say Captain William Shatner, but anyway, UFO sightings were made and mysterious holes suddenly appeared in Switzerland. See, he's done it again. UFO sightings were made and, mysterious holes suddenly appeared in Switzerland. You don't need the comma, Bruce. But what has this to do with ghost stations, you may ask? There could be a link with Captain Schaffner's mysterious disappearance. Also, let us remember many UFO sightings have been made over airfields. That's usually because they're aircraft and people misidentify. Anyway, it was in 1952 when 4 airmen stationed at Royal Air Force Topcliffe in Yorkshire stated that they had seen a mysterious object in the sky. It first appeared above the control tower, a huge silvery disc. Also, airmen from Royal Air Force Topcliffe reported seeing a Meteor jet fighter being shadowed by a flying saucer, which suddenly accelerated away at unbelievable speed. And there is still the unexplained UFOs sighted over Royal Air Force Lakenheath in 1956. They were identified by radar. One UFO was stationary at about 20,000 feet, and as the Royal Air Force fighter scrambled to intercept, the UFO moved behind the fighter. Bloody commas, Bruce, really? I'll read this out to you. What do you do on Wednesday night? I tuned in to watch Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra, but instead the confused man from Dudley with holes in his head and an awesome Godzilla t-shirt was picking the stories apart for English grammar and Brammer, but they were identified by radar. Full stop, correct. One UFO was stationary at about 20,000 feet, and as the Royal Air Force fighter, scrambled to intercept, the UFO moved behind the fighter, at all times being tracked by ground radar. Okay, perhaps that is right. The fighter pilot could not shake the mysterious UFO, and a second fighter was scrambled, but all contact was suddenly lost. Just as Captain Schaffner in Lightning XS-894 reported, UFO suddenly blacked out and contact lost. But in his case, the UFO was still there. From the past 2 years, UFOs have been reported over Belgium, and the Belgian Air Force has scrambled F-16 fighters to intercept them on many occasions, the UFOs being clearly seen on radar. The Belgian skies have experienced extraordinary phenomena, said Wilfred de Bruer, Belgian Air Force Chief of Staff. The holes in Switzerland are a mystery and were found after a UFO had been sighted. Holes in the earth have also been found in Russia, and with the holes in the earth, it is not possible for people to claim that they are made by whirlwinds or helicopters, as with the corn circles, nor can the holes in the earth be hoaxes, as with the corn circles. Again, Bruce, commas. The holes in the earth found in Switzerland may have some bearing on the mysterious disappearance of Captain Schaffner. Let me explain. Please do, Bruce. Many people reckon that the Roswell, New Mexico story of a crashed alien spacecraft being found by the US Air Force and taken to Wright-Patterson Army Airfield together with some dead aliens, where they remain to this day, is absolutely true. Punctuations all over the place here. The intelligence officer, Major Jesse Marcel, who was there at the time, actually released the story to the press. Then, of course, the balloon went up, and a cover story was quickly issued stating that it was only a weather balloon that had crashed. The media bought this, and so over 40 years of cover-ups and disinformation have been the norm. Again, the media bought this, and so over 40 years of cover-ups and disinformation have been the norm. Doesn't need to be and, comma, so over 40 years of cover-up. The establishment have done their utmost to seal the reality of UFO phenomena away from the public and, strangely, the scientific community as well. I think that should be Steele, Bruce, Steele. The country, let's see if I can do the voice actually. This country is experiencing the greatest wave of jingoism I have seen in my life, said Tony Benn in the House of Commons on Tuesday, the 15th of January, 1991. My good friend Tony Benn was talking about the Gulf War. The jingoism fell on deaf ears, with 9 Gulf War soldiers killed by the Americans' so-called friendly fire. A cover-up? A government whitewash? Yes. No, I'm sorry, Bruce. We know the story. So if we know the story, how was it a cover-up and a whitewash? Yes, and it was just the same at Casino during the Second World War when it was American friendly bombing. Again, comma, when it was American friendly bombing. And it was just the same at Casino during the Second World War when that killed Allied soldiers. This is where the commas don't make sense. And it was just the same at Casino during the Second World War when it was American friendly bombing that killed Allied soldiers. All one sentence, Bruce. So the government cover-up continues. The mysterious Swiss holes in the earth are in the area around Lake Geneva. The first to appear was just 2 meters in diameter with a depth of 1.5 meters. I think they're called sinkholes, mate. The hole that appeared at Olon in May 1981 had a diameter of 5 meters and a depth of 8 meters. Total earth removed being 157 cubic meters. The recent hole at Conflignon in February 1990 being 10 meters in diameter and 12 meters deep, the volume of earth being removed being 942 cubic meters. But anyone can dig a hole, you might say, but anyone can dig a hole, you might say, and how do you know they are not hoaxes? The strange holes in the earth all point to an alien force for the following reasons. All the holes have displayed unusual features. The holes are perfectly round circles, and there is no trace of any topsoil in any of them. And if it had been a straight case of soil subsidence, topsoil would be on the floor of the hole. There is no visible trace of foot or vehicle marks, nor of the soil from the hole. I think it was established that already, Bruce. The area is clean and unmarked in any way. So, what is the answer? Sinkholes. Expert investigators have come up with the answer and comma, say the soil is. Going to put people off watching this show, but again, he's done it again. Expert investigators have come up with the answer and, comma, say the soil is removed by, wait for it, an energy beam from an alien craft. Captain Schaffner was removed from his Lightning by an energy beam. The energy beam cuts the designated hole to the desired depth, and the cylinder-shaped probe core is taken aboard the alien craft by means of an anti-gravitational force, with not a speck of dirt falling to Earth. And to back up this train of thought, really, strange luminous objects, UFOs, were frequently reported hovering and maneuvering over the areas where the holes were found. And to add to the mystery, a cow was near one of the holes, and it had been mutilated with some sort of laser technology. He spelt laser with a Z. It shouldn't be a Z, it should be an S, because laser is an acronym of light amplification by the simulated emission of radiation. There was no blood near the animal, and veins, which would normally collapse, were found intact. And strangely, the rectum was cored out. So Switzerland had holes not only in its cheese. This story, quite frankly, the holes in the earth have produced a mystery that no one as yet has explained fully. And until they do, the alien UFO must remain the answer for many people. And it is true that governments know much more than they are prepared to say about space aliens and UFOs. I'm not sure I want to read this next one because it sounds a bit dodgy, but what are we up to? 40 minutes. I think, well, half time. I think it's time for some snacks. In the magnificent Rush beer glass. Thank you, viewers Kirsten and Steve in the United States. Slangs me, Bart. Oh, lovely. Your good health. Oh. Oh, right. Blackbird Extra Stout, brewed under the watchful eyes of the liverbirds. Roasted barley, flake malts, and a selection of dark malts are combined to create a robust dark stout with notes of coffee, rich toffee, and chocolate, finished with a lingering tannic bitterness. A special release from Love Lane, 6.7%. I love this stuff. This is from Home Bargains. It's also only $1.29 a can, so I definitely love this stuff. So no football tonight. So I did watch the penalty shootout last night, which was jolly good fun. Oh, let's top up the Balmier, shall we? That's going to be another bottle. Right, let's have some Thai chili snacks and talk about half time. What have we been up to today? Work mostly. A very complex artwork project, but we're working on it. So it's been a solid day of doing that and listening to Radio 3, and then quick walk down the shops to get some stuff for supper, and then ghost stories. So, And I'm loving my new Godzilla t-shirt. That is absolutely stunning. Love it. So no 2 Reg walk today because Reg is off in his camper van with his lady friend. But I do want to pay special tribute to my very good friend Faye, who sadly today had to say goodbye to her lovely old cat Batman, who I would cat sit for her. And yeah, Batman, he was very old and quite frail. And there he is with his camera around his neck. I loved looking after Batman. He initially would be quite standoffish, but he became quite used to me in the end. So very sad. They're built for quality, but not for longevity, cats. So I'm hoping to see Faye soon. But yeah, poor old Batman. I'm going to miss him because he felt like he was my cat as well. So, so Faye, you know, my thoughts are with you tonight, and now, yeah, the parcel turn up. What is in here? It's Ghost Stations 4. Now, I don't think I've got this one. I'm just having a quick flick through. Yep, as always. Oh, he does go on a bit. Right, we are going to need another ghost story book for tonight. So I am going to have to leave you for a few seconds, go over to the shelf there, and get another ghost story book, which we'll be back quite shortly. So let's put up the title card, shall we? I just went over to the bookshelf there to see what other Ghost Stations books I've got. So I've got the second, Ghost Stations 2, which he, for some reason, he called it ARG. I'm just seeing which ones here are nice and short that we can read. Don't think there are any. And then we've got Ghost Stations 3. So we might have a quick flick through that to see if there are some nice short ones. And then we've got the one which has just turned up, which is Ghost Stations 4, which I'm sure I had that one, but never mind. So let's have a bit more. Let's have some more. What are we going to have? Wasabi snack mix. Yeah, what the hell? Oh. Hmm. I'm just trying to see which ones aren't nice and short here. Yeah, I think we're going to pick our way through this because some of them are bizarrely very, very long, and because these are the ones where these are the books where I don't think the late Bruce Barrymore Halpenny had an editor who was saying to him, "Come on, Bruce, let's cut to the chase, shall we?" Great Rush song, by the way. That he just kind of goes on a bit. So, Dead Soldier and Run VT. He says, looking for the Run VT. Run VT.
Oh, it's jolly nice of you. Hello, Dead Soldier. Seen plenty of those in my time.
I mentioned friend Faye losing her cat, Batman. There is friend Faye. There is Batman on her lap. And this was where she told me off for being smutty. And then she said, pick up that plate. And I said, why? She said, pick up that plate. Why? Just pick up the plate. Pick up the plate. What does it have written on it? Twat. Look at the look on her face. It just, I've been played. I have been well and truly played there, ladies and gentlemen. And there's Batman. Poor old Batman. So, now, right. This is going to be a greatest hits of Volume 2 of The Grey Lady. Many people have heard stories about the Grey Lady, ... There are many ... But which Grey Lady, ... People refer to the ghost as a Grey Lady simply because the ghost is that of a woman and looks grey, ... A ghostly, misty grey figure, ... The Grey Lady she is described as. But this story about a true Grey Lady by the very nature of, this story is about a true Grey Lady by the very nature of her uniform. I'm not going to do the ... but it's just bloody annoying, Bruce. During the early part of the Second World War, William Bill Chappell served as a ward orderly with the Royal Army Medical Corps, RAMC, at the Netley Military Hospital, situated just southeast of Southampton. The hospital itself was a very large building, strange in the fact that it was built to plans intended originally for a hospital in India. It was in use during the First World War. Medical staff stationed at Netley Military Hospital spoke of the Grey Lady, and many people reported seeing a figure disappearing along one of the corridors. Staff also reported that in one of the upper rooms, a certain window, when shut, was always opened as the occupant left the room. Bill Chappell had heard the story about the Grey Lady, but kept an open mind about it all until one November night when he was on night duty and had an experience that changed his mind about the Grey Lady. Quick swig of the old beer, actually. Slange. Oh, lovely. Cheers, me beers. I just suddenly realised we haven't read the last one from Ghost Stations 5 rather. So here it is. The old scroungers come in. On the night in question, Bill Chappell was on duty. One sister was in charge of a ward some distance away, and another night sister was doing a tour of the wards to check on the patient. The duty night sister discussed various things with Bill and then asked if he had checked on a certain patient who was bedfast in a side ward. Bill Chappell had not done so, and it was then ascertained that the other sister had not left her ward. So the duty night sister and Bill Chappell made their way along to the side ward, which was some distance away, to check on the patient and see if he required anything. On entering the side ward, they found that the patient was quite comfortable. The patient looked surprised, with a Z, to see them both and asked the duty sister if everything was all right. The duty sister was puzzled and replied, "Why do you ask?" The patient then went on to explain that the other sister had been and made him comfortable and brought him a drink of water. So he was very surprised to see the ward orderly and duty night sister so quickly, for she had only been left his ward for a few minutes before they had arrived. Should be a comma there, Bruce. For she had only been, left his ward a few minutes before they arrived. Bill Chappell and the duty sister looked at each other and never spoke. Then the duty sister turned to the patient and asked him where the other sister had got his drink of water from. The duty sister now had a very uneasy feeling, for she knew that the area from where the water had been obtained was known to be locked. She turned to Bill Chappell, the ward orderly, and asked him to go and check the area leading from the ward in order to get to the bottom of the mystery. Bill left the ward to do as he was bid and was back in double quick time. "The area is all locked," he reported in a shaky voice, and he added, "There are no members of staff in the vicinity." "Can you give a description of the other sister?" asked the night duty sister to the patient, and she added, "Do you think anything was strange about her?" "Well, the question, sister, has she done something wrong?" asked the patient. "No," replied the sister, "I just want to know who gave you the water." Both the duty night sister and Bill Chappell were very careful not to enlighten the patient as to their suppositions. They both knew it had to be the Grey Lady. The patient went on to describe the other sister. "She was dressed in a different uniform," he said, but I did not think that strange, for I had seen her before in the same uniform." That would be the Queen Alexandra's Imperial Military Nursing Service uniform," said Bill Chappell, after he had listened to the description given by the patient. The duty sister agreed with him. Just as they were about to leave the ward, the patient called them back. "Oh," said the patient, "your other sister never spoke. She just got on with her work and gave me the impression that she was very dedicated in what she was doing. Nothing was too much trouble for her. She did seem very distant, though." The Grey Lady was seen around the hospital many times, and all patients visited by the Grey Lady said she was most helpful. All patients stated that she did not speak and seemed engrossed in her duties. The Grey Lady is the ghost of the fiancée of a First World War officer who had been brought in severely wounded. But due to pressure of work with other patients, she was unable to be with him, and by the time she did get to see him, he had died. It seems apparent that she must either, have blamed herself. Bruce, the commas, for goodness sake. It seems apparent that she must either have blamed herself for not being there to comfort and nurse him, correct use of comma here, Bruce, or was so distressed with the news of his death that she threw herself from the window of the room where the window would not shut. Misuse of a comma there, Bruce. Another one. Staff who have seen the Grey Lady never saw her as the patients did. They spoke of briefly glimpsing a figure disappearing along one of the corridors. The patients, on the other hand, told how helpful she was in making sure that they were comfortable. There can be no doubt that the Grey Lady is the young nurse who threw herself out of the window. That window is the one that does not stay shut. They all described her uniform as being that of the QAIMNS, Queen Alexandra's Imperial Military Nursing Service, which is a formidable title for a very, very formidable group of ladies. The Grey Lady has been described as the Florence Nightingale of the ghost world. The Grey Lady has been described as the Florence Nightingale of the ghost world. She received her training at the Institute of Protestant Deaconesses at Kaiserwerth, Germany, and became famous after her wartime work during the Crimean War in 1854 to 56. Became known. The Grey Lady and became famous after her wartime work during the Crimean War in 1854 to 56 became known. The Grey Lady likened herself to Florence Nightingale in working with the war wounded, and her earthbound spirit is doing penance. Has the Grey Lady now freed herself? The old military hospital is still there. Is the Grey Lady still doing her rounds? We have just gone through the hour mark. Do you know what, Derps? We are going to cut this short tonight because I was just going to say I do have a copy of this book, but I realised that the one I'm reading is the one I already have. So, and I've also realised we didn't read the last one from Ghost Stations 5. But you know what? I had a quick skim through it, and I thought, no, we're not going to read that one. So, but we are going to have some more wasabi mix. So, lucky old me. Oh, the beer burps at 1 hour and 1 minute and 7 seconds. Goodness me, that must be the latest we've had the beer burps on this show. Cheers. Oh, got fan mail. Oh, I've got some more fan mail. Right. Let's crack on, shall we? The Phantom Highwayman. The Phantom Highwayman, better known as Sandeman's ghost, since he resembled the cloaked figure of the Sandeman Port adverts, has been sighted again. The ghost passed in front of a courting couple who at first thought it was someone playing a prank. Slowly, the ghost highwayman glided towards them. "We were petrified," said the young lady. "It just moved towards us. He was all dressed in black with a cloak and a wide-brimmed hat, sort of hazy, and it made your blood run cold. Then, before I could scream, he vanished." So, the Sandeman ghost returns. For what reason? Legend has it that he will return to avenge his brutal murder. The ghost highwayman was seen many times by many of the airmen who served at Royal Air Force Aldergrove in Antrim, Northern Ireland. One of these was Sid, with a Y, Frogley, who was in the Met branch and attached to an upper air unit during the latter part of the Second World War. I well remember one 3 a.m. balloon ascent when a colleague and myself endeavoured to start the diesel generator to power the radar, said Frogley. It was a clear moonlit night, and as we were swinging the diesel engine, we noticed a tall, shadowy figure some 15 to 20 yards away. It was no easy task, nor was that accent, swinging the engine, and Sid Frogley paused for breath. As he looked up, he noticed someone a few yards away. Thinking it was a Royal Air Force Regiment security patrol, he shouted for them to come over. At the same time, started to swing the engine again. Errant commas again here, Bruce. He shouted for them to come over, comma, at the same time, comma, starting to swing the engine again. So if we take the commas out, it reads, he shouted for them to come over, starting to swing the engine again. But the engine refused to start. Sid gave up and walked over to the tall, dark figure. As I got nearer, I saw that he was dressed in a cloak and a tall, wide-brimmed hat, said Sid. I halted for a few moments. Then, as I moved forward again, he just disappeared. Sid Frogley and his colleague, who had witnessed the whole incident, were very puzzled. We were not afraid, said Sid, and the Phantom Highwayman was seen many times at RAF Aldergrove. It was nicknamed Sandeman's Ghost, for it looked just like the figure of the Sandeman Port adverts. And he added, Sandeman's Ghost was a popular figure in those days. The Phantom Highwayman is said to be the ghost of a notorious highwayman who was brutally killed and, according to legend, returns to seek revenge. The highwayman, notorious with the ladies, operated in the area where the Royal Air Force built Aldergrove Airfield. This could have been the cause why he returns. It was his patch. It was in this area where he was brutally killed. It was one moonlit night, and the tired passengers and crew of the old coach were looking forward to a well-earned rest at the inn. Suddenly, the driver of the coach reined the horses to a halt, for barring their path was a highwayman. He stood menacingly in the road, illuminated by the moonlight, which made him look 10 feet tall, in his black cloak and tall, wide-brimmed hat. He stepped forward and ordered the driver down off the coach, but before he did so, a beautiful young lady stepped out of the coach. The highwayman moved forward to greet her, but as he neared the young lady, a cloud scurried across the moon's face. The coach driver seized the opportunity and lunged at him from the top of the coach with a large knife. The highwayman fell to the ground, seriously wounded. Legend has it that the highwayman was then stoned to death by the crew and passengers of the coach. Then, as a warning to other highwaymen, he was tied to a stake by the roadside, his cloak tied over his shoulders, and his tall, wide-brimmed hat hung on the stake. The ghost highwayman has been seen many times, although the ghost highwayman has been seen many times, always during a full moon, and if any movement is made towards him, he vanishes. He vanished, rather. They say this is because he does not trust anyone, having lost his life by moving too near to the coach. According to legend, the ghostly highwayman will return to avenge his death during the full moon. In the early 1960s, Royal Air Force Aldergrove became Belfast Airport, and the old wartime buildings were replaced by a modern airport terminal. But change alone cannot drive away the ghostly highwayman. He will only rest after he has sought revenge. He will only rest after he has sought revenge. So beware. When there is a full moon, Sandeman's ghost still haunts the area around the airport. Oh, that was weak sauce, but I think I did. I think we'll unmore for tonight, and then that's it. I'm going to go and have some supper. I was going to say I'm going to have some supper and watch some football, but there's no football tonight. So, and Derpy has decided you can see this. He's decided to settle down. Oops, Daisy. Decided to settle down on the Jiffy bag down there. Strange cat. Cheers, me beers. Strange. Just have a quick look to see. Yeah, we'll see how we'll probably do unmore, but we'll have a couple of beers. So anyway, the Devil's Quoit. As the air war intensified, more and more airfields were needed to keep pace with the rapidly expanding Royal Air Force. It was decided early on in the war that the eastern side of England would house the bomber stations, the south to house the fighter stations, and the Midlands and western side would be used for training stations. One such training airfield was Abingdon in Oxfordshire, which was built during the Royal Air Force expansion period in the 1930s. Within a few months of war being declared, RAF Abingdon was bursting at the seams with aircraft, and it soon became apparent it would need a satellite airfield. Many sites in the area were surveyed, and the final choice was an area just west of the village of Stanton Harcourt. But the chosen site brought problems, not from difficulties with the landscape, but from 3 large stones standing in a field which would soon be turned into an airfield. When the villagers learned of the Royal Air Force's intention to build an airfield near their picturesque village, and in the process knock down the 3 large stones, they were horrified at the suggestion. Beer burps again. Oh, do apologise. Not at the thought of the airfield, but at what they were going to do with the 3 large stones. As one villager said, "Did not the Royal Air Force realise that these stones were the Devil's Quoits, and if they disturbed those stones, it would mean death, and that the accident rate on the airfield would be high?" The RAF planners scorned the superstition and announced that the airfield would be built where planned. But to please the villagers, they gave orders that the Devil's Quoits were to be set flat under the runway. "Beware the curse of the Devil's Quoits!" cried the villagers as the civilian workmen arrived with their machines and commenced work on turning the green and pleasant fields into an airfield. The workmen laughed at the superstitious villagers and set about their work. They had an airfield to build, and no superstitious stones would stop them. Oh, lovely. Slange. The airfield quickly took shape, and as the days passed, the workmen thought less and less about the death threat returning. The airfield quickly took shape, and as the days passed, the workmen thought less and less about the death threat regarding the Devil's Quoits. The three large stones still stood there, everyone knowing that who disturbed the stones, it would mean death. But surely for only those who believed in the superstition. Men had just started work on laying the runways when suddenly death fell out of the skies. On the 16th of August 1940, 3 German bombers, one for each of the stones, one for each of the 3 stones, said the locals, dropped out of the sky and attacked the workmen working on the new airfield. The German aircraft bombed and strafed the men as they ran for cover. As the dust settled, 5 workmen lay dead. Another 4 died later of their wounds. Was it the revenge of the Devil's Quoits? 9 died, 3 for each stone. 3 stones, 3 lives each. So those who disturbed the stones brought death, as the superstition said. But that did not stop the work, and the airfield opened as a satellite for Abingdon, and for the duration of the war, it housed Number 10 Operational Training Unit. The airfield closed after hostilities ceased, and parts of the old wartime airfield became a quarry. In the late 1970s, Stan Galloway returned to Stanton Harcourt for a stroll down memory lane. During his break between his first and second tour with Bomber Command, he was posted to Stanton Harcourt in 1942 as an instructor with Number 10 Operational Training Unit. He had only been on the airfield a few days when he heard the story about the Devil's Quoits. That was a long time ago now, but it was still very clear in Stan Galloway's mind as he drove down the entrance road to the perimeter track. From the perimeter track, all I could see was the conversion of the airfield into a quarry and no signs of the Devil's Quoits, he said. I drove along the perimeter track until I came to the old control tower. And he added, I just had to explore inside it. The wartime control tower, the keeper of memories, was in a good condition and it braved the elements. Stan made his way upstairs and onto the balcony, stirring up a spot of nostalgia in the process. After a short while, he made his way back down the stairs and back to his car. He was just about to get in when a farm worker shouted to ask what he was doing on the old airfield. I apologized for trespassing, said Stan, and explained that I was stationed at Stanton Harcourt during the war. In the course of the conversation, he asked if I had been in the control tower. He was surprised, with a Z, to hear that I had been inside. He then told me that the control tower was haunted by a young flying officer who had been killed in a flying accident. He said no one in the village would go in the building, so strong was the superstition. Had the flying officer, like the others, disturbed the Devil's Quoits and paid the ultimate price? Or was it the villagers' method of defense for keeping trespassers at bay? Maybe it was superstition, or maybe there was something. The devil's quoits, maybe. Bruce, that is terribly written. That is just absolute purgatory to try and read. And I'm going to have to make a note of what sections I have read. And yeah, we're not reading that last story. It's pretty grim stuff, folks. So I'm not going to read that one. I'm just going to see if there's a nice short one that we can end on tonight. What did you do on Wednesday night? I tuned in to watch Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra, but instead a confused man with holes in his head was faffing his way through ghost story books, trying to find some nice short stories to read. Bear with, folks. There are a couple here that are moderately short. Bear with. Yeah, I think we've found one that is. I think we've found one that will do the job. Yeah, that'll do. Return to Squires Gate. I must make a note of the ones that we read tonight so that when I do get around to doing the rest of the book, I don't reread old ones. So you're good health. Slange in the magnificent United Federation of Planet Shot Glass. Again, courtesy of viewers Kirsten and Steve in the United States. Cheers, me beers. Right, last for tonight. A haunted holiday. Many old wartime airfields have been given a new lease of life. Some of the lucky ones being used by flying clubs, thus able to continue in a flying role. Others were turned into a variety of uses, which includes use in the leisure industry. The domestic site of the old Royal Naval Air Station St. Mirren, HMS Vulture, has been converted into a holiday camp. One day, a cleaning lady was working one of the huts on the old airfield when suddenly she felt a presence and an urge to look around at the bed, which was just behind her. She turned to see a pilot sitting on the bed. He was wearing a fur-lined leather jacket and similar style knee-length boots. He had in his hand a leather flying helmet. I was petrified, said the cleaning lady, and she refused to work in that hut again. From 1978 to 1980, squadron leader Colin Pomeroy served as a flight commander on number 42 Squadron at Royal Air Force St. Morgan, flying Nimrod aircraft, or considerably Nimrod aircraft, and as St. Morgan has only a few married quarters located within its confines, he lived in one of 5 ex-Royal Navy officers' quarters at the old Royal Naval Air Station, St. Mirren. During this period, he became very friendly with members of the Padstow Trevose Head lifeboat crew. And on one of his visits, the conversation turned to Royal Naval Air Station St. Mirren and the haunted holiday hut. One couldn't hope to meet a more down-to-earth and level-headed lady than, one couldn't hope to meet a more down-to-earth and level-headed lady than the one to whom I was talking, he said. She was quite emphatic that there was one of the huts on the old airfield into which she would no longer enter. And Squadron Leader Pomeroy added, I cannot obviously vouch for the accuracy of her story. I can, though, vouch for the sincere way in which it was told to me. From a haunted holiday hut to a haunted holiday cottage. And this one was so bad that it made the Hodgkins family pack up and leave before their holiday had ended. This haunted holiday cottage was one on what was part of the old Holmesley airfield in Hampshire. Oh, goodness me, I've just suddenly realised I've started reading this one and it's bloody pages long. Shouldn't have started this one. Never mind. Let's crack on. The old airfield was officially known as Holmesley South. The old airfield, known officially as Holmesley South, was not far from Christchurch and was very close to the New Forest. During the war years, it housed some Coastal Command squadrons and some Canadian fighter squadrons before being taken over by the Americans to become Station Number 455. American Martin B-26 Marauders then operated from the airfield, which closed soon after the war ended. He had a brief but hectic life, and after the war, the bulk of the airfield was quickly reclaimed by the Forestry Commission. One section is now used as a public road, and some of the buildings at the edge of the airfield in the Forest Road area were turned into self-catering holiday cottages. Again, punctuation, Bruce, all over the place. One of these holiday cottages was called Heathfield Cottage in Forest Road, Holmesley, on the very edge of the wartime airfield. The cottage was isolated, and the remains of the wartime runway was only a few hundred yards away. In the summer of 1972, Mr. and Mrs. Hodgkins and their two children decided to again spend a holiday at Heathfield Cottage, but this time Mrs. Hodgkins took her parents along. That must be fun. My husband, myself, and our two young sons had for a couple of years spent a self-catering holiday at Heathfield Cottage in Hampshire. We loved every minute of our holiday and nothing unusual happened, said Mrs. Eileen Hodgkins. But their third holiday at the cottage was to be very different, as she explained. Something happened on that third holiday that has made a lasting impression on me and is as vivid today as it was then. But what was that? Had the Hodgkin family unlocked the time zone? Not really. It started the day they arrived at the cottage. Eileen Hodgkin's mother said she was horrified by the feeling she had experienced on entering the cottage, but she said nothing at the time so as not to upset the holiday. Unbeknown also to any of us was the fact that my mother was sleeping on a bed previously unused by any of us, said Eileen. This turned out to be not a proper single bed, but an old-fashioned laying-out board. This was not discovered until the next day, he added. It started on their very first night and repeated every night the same pattern. But for Eileen and her husband, they were unaware of what was going on each night. They just knew it did not feel right, but thought no more of it, for they were on holiday. As Eileen explained, my husband and I were both awakened during the night by heavy footsteps going down the stairs, doors opening and closing, chairs being scraped on the kitchen floor, and the sound of china and cutlery. I'm afraid my husband's reaction was, can't your parents go through the night without having to make a cup of tea and wake everybody up? Tell them we are on holiday and to enjoy themselves. The next day, Eileen found that her parents did not bring up the subject, so she thought it better not to say anything. She still decided to stay silent, even though the same thing happened night after night, much to the annoyance of Eileen and her husband. After a few days, Richard, who was 8 years old, the eldest, turns page, the eldest of the two boys, started talking about the nice man in a leather jacket and goggles, and he said to his mother, the nice man, mummy, who comes and stands by my bed and smiles at me. It was only then that Eileen and her husband realized that there was some presence in the cottage, but not harmful in any way. Richard was not in the least distressed by the visits from the nice man in the leather jacket, said Eileen, but it did make us wonder what was going on. After a few days, my parents wanted to know why it was we could not sleep at night and had to keep getting up and making tea, disturbing them both. It was only then did we realize that all four of us were hearing exactly the same thing. Strange. And Eileen Hodgkins added, my mother and I are both inclined to be fey, but I can assure you that both my father and husband are the most down-to-earth men you could meet, and before this the pair of them would have scoffed at any suggestion of ghosts. I don't know about my father, but it shook my husband. The children took it all as part of the holiday and could not understand what all the fuss was about. To them it was a great adventure, but for their parents and grandparents it was a nerve-shattering experience and very upsetting. The feeling in the cottage was one of despair and sadness, said Eileen Hodgkins. The only room you did not experience this was the bathroom. The Hodgkins family were so distressed with it all, they cut short their holiday and returned home. It was just too much for them. It is difficult to say why it happened, and I can only suggest that they bordered on the edge of a time zone, but did not have the psychic power to enter. It is known that the only room in which they did not have a feeling of sadness was the bathroom. This room had been built on after the war and was not part of the original cottage. I don't know, I go to the bathroom and I have a distinct feeling of sadness. But anyway, the cottage was on the very edge of the old wartime airfield, and during the war it was used as a billet for the officers. So it had very strong wartime connections, which could well explain the apparition that visited young Richard's room. Royal Air Force Canadian and American were stationed at Holmesley South Airfield during those hectic war years. For many, it was their last place on Earth. The Hodgkins family had been twice before to Heathfield Cottage for a holiday, and errant comma had enjoyed themselves very much. Doesn't need the comma there, Bruce. It should just be they had been to Heathfield Cottage for a holiday and had enjoyed themselves very much. No need for a comma. They had not felt or heard anything unusual during their previous holidays at the cottage. But with hindsight, Mrs. Eileen Hodgkins did say, "We remember hearing what we took at the time to be a number of birds in the roof space, making a great deal of noise. That is probably all it was, but one can't help wondering after our third visit." The haunted holiday is a mystery, and it would be interesting to know if anyone else had experienced anything paranormal in Heathfield Cottage before or since the Hodgkins experience. For, as Mrs. Eileen Hodgkins says, "Believe me, it is something none of us in the family will forget." Bit like your punctuation, Bruce. It's just, oh, anyway, thunderclap. See again. The haunted holiday is a mystery and, comma, it would be interesting to know if anyone else had experienced anything paranormal in Heathfield Cottage, comma, before or since, comma, the Hodgkins experience. So if you read that without the commas in the way, it is the haunted holiday is a mystery and before or since the Hodgkins experience. That's why we put commas in there, Bruce. It paces out the narrative flow. Oh, goodness me, you're going to get fed up with me doing this, but anyway, that's it for that one. I'm going to mark out the pages that we've done very lightly in pencil so I can remember them for next time. What are we up to? Hour and 30 minutes. We've had 90 minutes tonight, folks. So no wonder I'm starving, hungry. So slange me, bum. Oh, delicious. Cheers. Deliciouser. Oh. Oh, lovely. Right. We're going to go downstairs and have some supper. You, on the other hand, Derp, are just going to fall asleep on the Jiffy bag. You've got a bed here, but you're going to sleep on the Jiffy bag. So there we go. Fingers crossed. We'll be back on Friday for, brace yourselves, Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra on a Friday. Until then, it behoves me to say thank you for watching. Why? Why not? What else are you going to do on a Wednesday night than watch a confused man from Dudley with holes in his head and an awesome Godzilla t-shirt, drink ghost stories and read alcohol? I would say you could watch the World Cup, but there are no matches until tomorrow night. So, the beer burps again. So, fingers crossed, we'll see you on Friday. Until then, as ever, it behoves me to say thank you for watching. Stay safe. Stay out of trouble. Please don't have nightmares. Good night.